From the inside, speaking out is a Kulamani Speak Out, Speak Truth segment. It's unique reporting and perspectives from those literally and presently on the inside or who have been on the inside of an issue, place, industry, cultural phenomenon, or movement, among other things. From the prison industrial complex and juvenile justice reform to the Black Lives Matter movement and the increase in activity of white supremacist hate groups to corporate and governmental corruption and more, whether through lived experience or witnessing firsthand. This is Kulamani Speak Out, Speak Truth. And this is From the Inside Out segment. I'm your host, Mustafa-El Ajala, and our guest here today is one of my beloved and honored ox, my comrade Diaab. And it's an honor to have you here today, Akeem. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam, Trullah. It's an honor to be here, brother.
Alhamdulillah. Now, this episode is titled From Life to Life, from a life in prison to a life of freedom. And we're gonna get into that and explain why, that's the title and what I went through. But first, let the audience know who you are and where you are at this time.
Okay. My name is Diaab Abdullah Zaki Sanders, formerly named Derek Sanders, and I'm currently in Grand Prairie, Texas, suburbs about 20 miles south of Dallas. Right now, I'm doing truck driving, over-the-road truck driving, local truck driving for General Motors, as well as I do prison reentry outreach, and I speak to the youth and whatnot. Now that COVID is relaxing, I'll get back on my circuit of speaking. And as far as the community I'm involved in Masjid al-Islam, the oldest black community, the oldest black masjid in Dallas, Texas. And one of the things we do is we do outreach for the community as far as not only just giving the deen, but also we have last year alone, we have gave out over 20,000 pounds of food, free food distributed to the community. We get clothes, and we got a mental health center and whatnot. So I'm just proud to get back to the community after spending almost 26 years wrongly incarcerated in the Wisconsin Department of Corrections.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. That's beautiful. Okay, look, we want to get the audience a little background, listeners a little background. Where were you originally from?
I was originally from Gary, Indiana, an all-black city about 35 miles south of Chicago. And believe it or not, Gary was a prosperous city in the 70s and 80s. And then it became crime-ridden once the steel mills was removed. And so I grew up in that environment. I grew up as a young child in an environment of not only just the black movement, but around black people. And it was love, the community in itself. But then also in my teenage years, it was drugs and crime that I grew up in as well. And so I don't like to say being a product of my environment. I started adapting to the circumstances of my environment. And what I mean by is that I felt like for survival tactics, survival mode, I ran with the guys in my neighborhood. I sold drugs. I was part of the drug selling community within my community as well as without my community. And, I just did things that I may have been ashamed of, but I felt it was survival mode, survival tactic. And I ran with the vice lords and whatnot, and we was in the community. And we also did some things. I think we protected brothers in the community, and we was close-knit. And one of the things, we was aligned with brothers in Chicago, and we was very in tune with those brothers. And so my upbringing was always that of black empowerment and black unity. Even if people look at that and say, well, how can he say he was in the gang and still claim black unity? That was one of the reasons that I joined the organization, is because of the unity that I seen amongst the brothers.
Yes. So you kind of answered the following questions. I'm glad you got into that, make my job a little easier on this end. And that was going to be, what was your youth like coming up? And, we all know, for those from the area, definitely that, Gary is still part of the Chicago metropolitan area. It's all part of the land. The question, I guess that kind of answers this next question as well. What and where was the maker of D-Rock? You know what I mean?
Wow.
Because I know that used to be your old handle, so I guess
right yeah,
there.
D-Rock.
Yeah.
Well, actually, D-Rock just come from growing up. I had an uncle, and he was one of the biggest drug dealers in that area, and his name was Podade. And I didn't want to be called Little Podade, but I wanted to make my own mark. And so I just took the handle D-Rock. This guy named Tyrone Scott, may he rest in peace. He started calling me D-Rock because, believe it or not, in the 7th grade, there was guys from the projects that wanted to fight one of my guys that I grew up with. This was my childhood buddy. And this is what I mean. I think people don't understand when they want to. You can label it what you want to label. You can label it a gang, an organization, a fraternity, a sorority, whatever. But when these guys was going to do some harm to one of the person that I had grew up with, person I played Little League with, I was there to support him. And so it was me and him against like 8 or 9 guys. And you know, we got into a little what you call a childhood skirmish. But every time I would see those guys, I would end up fighting. And so they'd be like, oh, you think you hard? You know what I'm saying? I was like, man, I'm hard as a rock. And so my guys started calling me D-Rock, you know what I'm saying? And I tried my best to be solid. But, you know, I also look at it like as I was older, I just wanted to also be solid. When I say solid, just in my dealings with, you know what I'm saying, everybody I came in contact with. You know what I'm saying? I was never known for one, being a snitch, being provocateur. I was never known for any homosexual activity. I was just known for an upright, solid brother. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I think the name D-Rock represents.
Okay. Well, question here. What, because I know you migrated eventually because you already stated that, you know, that you did your time in the Wisconsin prison system. So what drove you or your family, for that matter, from Gary to Wisconsin, and where in Wisconsin?
Now, this is an amazing story that a lot of people don't know and don't believe, may not find it hard to believe. I actually didn't migrate. I was captured and kidnapped. And I'm going to tell you why I say captured and kidnapped, out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. On November 2nd, 1992. And on November 1st, 1992, I had a family member, dear cousin, who lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And he was going through some problems, you know what I'm saying? Some guys were telling him in the neighborhood that he couldn't live there because it was, and I don't use the term opposition. It was guys or another tribe or another organization, and they was there. They felt that was their neighborhood, and they felt that my cousin couldn't live there and couldn't be there. And so he came to Gary and told me about it. And so I was like, well, you know, after they kicked his door in and broke in his house, I was like, well, you know, we're going to go down there and we're going to get your stuff back and we're going to get, quote unquote, to the bottom of it. And so I left the night of Halloween, October 31st, got to Milwaukee November 1st, and slept, took a little nap, and then I hung out with some guys, you know, my cousin knew. And later on that night, I was kidnapped. And so I actually spent more time in the Wisconsin prison than I did on the Wisconsin street. I think I did 32 hours actually on the Wisconsin street, in the streets of Milwaukee, before I was kidnapped and spent roughly 25 years. I never lived in Milwaukee. I never lived in Wisconsin. It was actually my first time even visiting the state of Wisconsin.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's news to me. Yeah.
Right.
Listen. Yeah, I didn't realize that, man. So actually, you was there 32 hours before you were incarcerated.
Before I was incarcerated, I was there 32 hours and spent over 25 years in that state.
Okay, now here's the question. You know, I mean, I know that's part of some pending litigation in terms of civil litigation, the aftermath of it. But let's at least get into this much. What were you incarcerated for? What was you charged with?
I was charged with first-degree intentional homicide. And you know what I'm saying? That was our charge with first-degree intentional homicide, the worst crime in the state of Wisconsin. In actuality, one of the things that was said to me was that it was known that I didn't have nothing to do with it, but it's because I wouldn't inform on the person. They wanted me to inform on my cousin and I say his co-defendant and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? And to this day, I still can't say my cousin committed any crime because I wasn't there, as I told them. But for some reason, I think the Milwaukee police officers, Derek Fisher and Eugene Farmer, and I say their name without bias. I say their name because it's a matter of open record. They had took the course of that. They felt like I was holding up to some code. And Lieutenant Eugene Farmer specifically told me, he said, listen, since you want to stand up and stick to the code of silence, I'm going to ensure that you get charged in Milwaukee with this crime, party to a crime. I don't care if you was there or not. You know what I'm saying? His words was to me, he didn't care if I was there or not. Eugene Farmer told me he didn't care if I was there or not. He said once he leave the room, when he come back, I was either going to have a statement for him or he was going to turn this statement in. And the sheet he gave me was saying that I was there, that I assisted, that I was the trigger man. And you know, that was a scare tactic that the police use among youth, especially black men and whatnot. And so when he came back, I had my head down. And once he seen the paper was empty, you know, he couldn't believe it. And he was just looking at me. He was like, okay. You know, so he said, you're not from here, huh? He said, you want to play the game? He said, I'm going to see how long you can play the game. And he left. And then that's when the process of the frame, the setting up and the kidnap began. That set the kidnap in motion. And basically what he said was he went to the other co-defendant. You know, it was three. It was three of us. He went to the other co-defendant and brainwashed him to get him to say that me and my cousin did it and whatnot. And so that's how the wheels start turning of the frame.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is after that person had already said he had nothing to do with it. He didn't know nothing about it. He gave like 6 or 7 different statements because they kept coming to him to get them to change the statement. After what they was telling him to say wasn't adding up, they kept piecing together until they finally got the final puzzle to complete the frame and the kidnapping.
Yeah. And let me say this here. You may not even want to speak on this. You know, and I mean, you just told me some stuff I definitely wasn't familiar with. But, you know, a little bit of the stories came to me along these lines. You can correct it or state no comment. We can move on to something else or whatever. But I'm speaking on this because there's laws in Wisconsin and many other states for that matter, most states, but there's laws in Wisconsin that specifically address this in terms of when a person can be charged with party to the crime, aiding and abetting, what's the other term for it? Conspiracy. You know what I mean?
Right. Accessory and conspiracy.
If you and I are together, and let's say you have some type of conflict, and you're my comrade, and we get together, guys jump you, rob you, ransack your house, whatever the case may be, and we address that matter, right? Whether verbal confrontation, physical confrontation, whatever the case may be, and then we part ways, and then later on, you and another friend run into these same guys. And there's another confrontation, let's say physical confrontation. I'm not there at that particular event. And then later on that night, another incident happened, and I'm not there, or you are not there for that matter, right? In this particular time, gunplay happens and somebody wind up dead. So I was at the first incident, or for that matter, you was at the first and second, whichever case may be. But you or neither I, or one or the other, was at the third event when the actual gunfire took place, and as a result of that, somebody lost their life. So that does not make me, even though I was at the initial little squabble or confrontation or verbal spat, whatever you want to call it, that does not make me a party to the crime or in any way involved in what happened the second and third time down the line. And that's what I got, man. I was informed it was something along those lines.
That's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it was. I was involved in the initial fight. Like I say, the person I came to Milwaukee with was my blood. This is my cousin. I love him then and I love him now. And I fully support him. And once it came up and once the guys it got into a fight, I was there to aid and assist my brother. I was there to help my brother. And once we went into his home, and we were still fighting, I was there to aid and assist. And then I ceased my participation in that. And that is not, as you said, the third location is not technically legally party to a crime. If you look at the statute of party to crime, it says that you have to be actively participating in the act. You have to even conspire for the act. And the person that is committing the act, he has to know that you are willing to help and aid and assist in that act. And so, because I wasn't there, if I wasn't present, it couldn't be party to a crime. But one of the things Wisconsin is known to do, especially in the African American community, is they use the party to a crime law blatantly and illegally. And I say that to say this: you're correct, because I wasn't at the third incident location. There was no way I could have been charged with party to a crime. After them proving a conspiracy, they had admitted there wasn't no conspiracy. And so, like I say, it was just part of the kidnapping ruse. But, brother, I want to tell you, even if it would have happened, even if the murder would have happened at the first scene where I was aiding and abetting the fight, according to the statute, the way it's technically read, because murder, if I'd have been fighting, helping him fight, and he'd have pulled out a weapon and killed him, murder is not a natural probable cause of the initial battery. And because that's not a natural and probable cause, I still wouldn't have been liable for that. And that was one of the arguments I successfully argued in the Wisconsin Court of Appeals. And they agreed with that.
And I want to get to that a little bit down the line. But I mean, you taking some of the words right out of my mouth. As you know, I do the litigation myself. And that's exactly on point, because you know, I can agree to a fist fight, but not a killing. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
We could be walking down the street together and somebody could disrespect you or me for that matter, and it could turn into blows. and then I, up a pistol, or you up a pistol. And so while you might have been willing to aid me in a physical scuffle, and I up a pistol and kill somebody, that doesn't make you willing to aid me in a murder.
In the murder, exactly.
Yeah,
and that is exactly true.
So,
but they have us believing that, and it's sad. And I'm the prime example of you being a litigator, and I know you done seen. I'm a prime example. First and foremost, not knowing the law, not knowing my rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I didn't use that right. You really don't have to say nothing. It seemed like we feel that once we get arrested, once we get accosted by the police, that we have to plead our innocence and we have to explain why we didn't do it. When in actuality, that's the exact opposite. They have to prove that you did it. You don't have to say nothing. It's your best interest to be quiet. But they have us believing, as many men I encountered in Wisconsin Department of Correction, they have us believing that if you was at the scene, if you was there, if you was with your guy, he killed somebody, you guilty party to a crime. And that's not true. That's not factual.
And it's kind of good reason why they have people believing that. And, not that it's right, but I'm going to give you, let you know what I'm speaking upon when I say that. And that's this. Actually, we all know, people hear it all the time, you're innocent until proven guilty, and you have to be found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. But once you get bound over in many systems, and Wisconsin is one of them, once you get bound over, at that point, you have to prove your innocence.
Exactly.
Because that is how biased the jury system is.
Exactly.
It's lean to law enforcement, it's lean to the prosecution. So what they say, they believe, and unless you can prove the prosecution wrong, 9 times out of 10, you're going to do some prison time.
Yeah, you're going to do prison time.
And it's only one place, and the audience may not know this, but you would know it when I say it now. I'm currently incarcerated. So my brother Diaab on the phone with me. We've served some time together, and inshallah, I'll be out there in society soon myself. But it was only in Illinois. It was only in Illinois where I caught my first case that I beat it. And it was a simple fact of, at the preliminary hearing, I wanted to speak. And usually your counsel will try to coach you or instruct you
to waive your right,
yeah,
exactly,
or even waive the preliminary hearing. So I decided to speak, and the judge simply asked me, "Did you do this?" I said, "No, I did not." I was working at the time. I was working in Lake County, right outside Chicago, and so the judge dismissed the case right there at preliminary hearing because all it was allegations from a detective. You know what I mean? And so, and that goes on in the Wisconsin system all the time, where guys waive their preliminary hearing, and from that point on, it's an uphill battle. So let me ask you this here: when were you actually found guilty? And we'll get to the sentencing part. But when was you actually found guilty? Did you go to jury trial?
No, I didn't.
Okay, I didn't know that. So you took a plea. Did you plead no contest or guilty?
I pled no contest.
What was the offer? The plea was?
The offer. Now, this is a major story you may not, and I'm getting to share this with you, bro. I don't know if you knew this. I probably was one of the first ones that you would probably ever met that got their case successfully overturned 2 times in the state of Wisconsin. And I had an attorney that I paid for, and his advice to me was, because no one was there, no one could put me at the scene of the crime. He said that means no one could say that I wasn't at the scene of the crime. And he said, well, you admitted to being involved in the first fight. He told me if I plead no contest, which he said it meant I didn't do it, but it's a chance they may find me guilty because I can't prove I didn't do it. He said if I plead no contest, I will get anywhere between 8 to 10 years. I'm never being in the Wisconsin system. I'm being from a system where if you get 8 years, you do 4 years. And so I felt like as a black man, I had no win in the justice system here. And so I took the plea, you know what I'm saying? And so at my sentencing, I pled guilty to first. Now you need to hear this. I pled guilty to first-degree intentional homicide as a party to a crime. Thinking party to a crime because it was always on my paperwork was a separate charge. I had never been arrested in that system. I didn't know the law and whatnot. And I put my faith in my attorney, as sad as that is, but as many men do, thinking I would get anywhere between 8 to 10 years. My lawyer argued for 8 to 10 years. And at the time, the prosecutor interrupted me and said, well, Your Honor, the statute don't ask for less than 13-6. And so I received a life sentence with a parole eligibility date in 22 years. The Wisconsin Court of Appeals, the Wisconsin Supreme Court ruled that my sentence was illegal because I didn't know how much time I was facing. At my Mockman hearing, my attorney got on the stand and admitted, not only did he admit, he advised me that I was going to get 8 years. When my attorney asked him how much time was I facing, he still didn't know the statute on the stand, but yet the judge still ruled in the prosecutor's favor and said that I knew how much time I was facing, or I should have known. The Wisconsin Court of Appeals in 1996 overturned it and dismissed my case outright, threw it out. I got another attorney. She came in and within 30 days told me, you got your case overturned on a technicality. The judge is now handing out 50 years parole eligibility date. I can guarantee you're going to get at least 40, 50 years. She said, plead back to no contest and I'll put you in the exact same position that you was where you can see daylight. At this time, I had an affidavit from my co-defendant who admitted that he was the trigger man and I wasn't there. And she said that doesn't mean nothing. And so I pled no contest to the exact same thing. And all they did is, at sentencing, is re-enter my original sentence. And I sat for 19 years after that, and roughly 19 years after that, not knowing the law, not knowing nothing. And I met this brother Damali, and we was talking, and he just looked over my sentence transcript, 2 pages, and told me how illegal it was. And he said he was going to help me fight my case. Well, he went to segregation, and I just decided to, instead of just sitting here, I just started researching my case. And I just started seeing where they railroaded me and they kidnapped me, because I always professed my innocence, and my story had never changed. And roughly about a year or two after that initial sit down with the brother Damali, I ended up pro se filing the motion pro se, and the same notorious Judge Jeffrey A. Wagner denied me. And then I filed a supplemental action for reconsideration and explained to him how he was wrong and how he misappropriated the law, misconstrued the law. And he had no choice but to agree with me. And he appointed me a hearing. And because he said my issues was so complex, he had to appoint me an attorney, and they appointed me an attorney. And within...
Okay, pause right there. Pause right there before we get to the attorney, because we want to speak on briefly Damali. And you were referring to Damali Mudina Coffee, right?
Yes, sir. The brother Damali Mudina Coffee.
Yeah, that's one of the comrades, excellent litigator.
Excellent litigator.
We were both law library clerks in Green Bay at one time. Those 2006.
Right, he was telling me that. Right, he was. In fact, the case he argued, you sent him the case. You had gave him the case. He argued in my case. You had gave him the I can't think of it offhand. I think it's Diaab.
Was it State versus Edwards?
No, State versus Howe. He told me you had gave him the State versus Howe, where the brother didn't know what he was pleading to and withdrew his plea. That's the case. That's the case. You actually sent it to him, and that's the case he needed for my case. And that was the case. That was the controlling case in my appeal that got me out. That was actually the only case with State versus Brown and State versus Howe I used. And for listeners who don't know, what that case is saying is that I have to be, in order for me to willingly and consciously plead no contest or guilty, I have to know the elements, what I'm pleading to. I have to know what I'm pleading to, and I didn't.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. That part I don't even remember, but it's a blessing. All praise be to Allah in either case. Okay, now, before we get to this lawyer that was appointed for you, so let's make this clear. And, and listen, we appreciate all the work that the Innocent Project do when they actually do take a case, but we know that many cases they don't take. So this wasn't the Innocent Project. This was a pro se legal aid, also incarcerated.
Exactly.
Yeah, go ahead.
The attorney, and like you said, I'm not gonna say anything bad about this attorney, but what I'm saying is I had a hearing when the attorney came, so the attorney didn't have to do the hearing. Everything Damali and I did, we had laid it out so good that, and Allah knows best, the case was won based off Damali already. It was because it was a matter of record. They didn't explain to me the elements of party to a crime. Nowhere on the record is party to a crime or its elements listed or explained to me. The record shows that I wrote the judge at my initial sentence and told him, and I used these exact words, the only reason I'm pleading no contest because I was involved in the fight that happened before the murder. I didn't know nothing about the murder. I wasn't there with the murder, and I don't know who did the murder. That alone means the judge had a duty to explain to me party to crime. He couldn't simultaneously accept my plea while I turned around and said I wasn't there. And so, like I said, Allah knows best, God knows best. But my case was already won when Damali set it up. What my attorney came and did was basically ask the questions that I had given him to ask. And so I'm not trying to dismiss what my attorney did. And I know he used my case, and when he dealing brothers to say, well, that brother did 26 years, I got him out. But I put my faith in the line. I say it was the model.
Okay, a question I'd like to ask is, let's back it up a little bit. When you were sentenced, what do you remember of that day?
Now, if you recall, I actually remember. I recall. I told you I went into this courtroom on sentencing day expecting 8 years because I felt I was facing 8 to 10 years. No, my attorney had told me if I plead no contest, I get it over between 8 to 10 years. And I'm thinking of this 8 to 10 years that I would have to do roughly 4 or 5 years of the 8 to 10 years. I'd never been to Wisconsin. I didn't know how the sentencing guidelines were. Now, keep in mind, the co-defendant had got a 10-year sentence. And so I'm expecting 8 to 10 years. And so when the attorney said a parole eligibility date, a life sentence, a parole eligibility date of 2015, and this 1992, I'm confused. My prosecutor, the DA, she had asked to recommend anything less than what my co-defendant got, and he had a parole eligibility date of 21 years. And her statement was, we don't believe Mr. Sanders was as involved as his co-defendant, so of course he shouldn't get as much time as his co-defendant. And so she didn't even recommend the sentence. When he gave me the sentence, the state ADA said, Donna, that's 22 years. And he was like, and she was in shock. And he was like, yeah, exactly. And so I turned to my attorney. He was like, well, hold up, what's going on? I thought I was facing 8 or 10 years. He said, well, you deal with that with your appeals attorney. Now, when he tell me that, he was patting my hand. I'm thinking all this was going to get worked out like that day as they taking me out. I'm expecting him to work this out. Like, it was a mistake or something. Because for one, like I say, the ADA was shocked and my attorney was just looking like, and so it didn't hit me that I had a life sentence until I got, believe it or not, until I got the Dodge correction. No, I got the Green Bay Correction Institution. I wrote my attorney and was telling him, like, you told me that I was going to get anywhere between 8 to 10 years. You know what I'm saying? I should get 8, but it could go as high as 10. And I got a life sentence and with a parole eligibility date in 22 years. What happened? One of the things that helped me on my appeal is that when he replied to that letter, he didn't say that. The only thing he said was, well, that's the issue you have to take up with your appeal attorney. And he gave me a list of lawyers that I can contact and whatnot. And so at the initial sentencing, I didn't have the shock of the life sentencing because I thought it was a mistake. Once I realized that it was a mistake, then I went through a range of emotions, anger being one of them. You know what I'm saying? Because I felt like I was railroaded, you know what I'm saying? And I just felt like I was kidnapped. And at that moment, it was the anger, you know what I'm saying? And that anger defined my whole stage within the Wisconsin Department of Correction. It was that anger that was the backdrop of everything I did. When I say everything, a lot of things that I did within the prison system was based on that anger.
A question here. During your incarceration, 26 years, was there any point during your incarceration that you thought you might actually die in prison?
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely thought I would die in prison. And to tell you when that was is when me and you had first started contacting each other when we both went to the Wisconsin Supermax prison. I don't know what they call it today. It's the Supermax. When we was there, it was the Wisconsin
program facility.
Yeah, secure program. Yeah, when we was there, it was the Supermax Correctional Institution. And they gave me my file in my packet. And in my administrative confinement file, the guy specifically said it. He said this prison was built specifically for persons like him, And I think he should spend the rest of his incarceration within this prison. And so that's when I realized that they was trying to hold me until I died. That they had no means or no plans or no intentions of releasing me at my parole eligibility day. I truly believe that.
Yeah.
I truly believe that.
Another question here. Probably go ahead. I'll go ahead and finish the statement.
No, that's it. I truly believe that.
Okay, well, another question is speaking specifically on Supermax. You were there, I was there. I spent more than 16 years there total. And for those that didn't know, look, when you came to Supermax, you couldn't even see the outside. You didn't even have a real toothbrush. You had a little finger
thing
type
put on,
object that you slipped on your finger like a ring, and that's what you had to brush your teeth with, and it was just plastic. It wasn't bristles, anything of that nature. No electronics. I mean, it was rough, right? And so a lot of people were broken. I mean, psychologically, and some are still broken to this day. I mean, mentally disabled. I mean, not themselves, speaking to themselves, hallucinations, and some guys did, and I even know one guy that's still like 22 years in of solitary confinement. So, I mean, their solitary confinement sentences were off the chain and still are off the chain, because really many of the general population is still solitary confinement because you're locked in the cell 22, 23 hours a day, sometimes 24 hours a day. So my question to you now is, how did you overcome that and not be broken by it?
I was not broken by Supermax because as I went in, I was told that Supermax would do two things. It would either break you or build you up or make you stronger. And brothers like you, I had a support system with brothers like you, the brothers like Ezra, certain brothers, and Islam. I turned to Islam and turned to my Lord and whatnot and asked for the strength. And I had anger, and because I knew I was being mistreated, I knew they wanted to kill me, and I refused to let my enemy kill me. And so that put me in survival mode. And just to speak on Supermax, man, I lost, and I don't say I lost because I just spoke to him. I got a dear brother from Gary, Indiana, that's still locked up in the Wisconsin prison, the brother Kamal. And, that brother
that's family.
From my home, that's family. And I seen what it did to him. And not only did it fuel me, do it anger me, that it's one of the things they have me working on right now to just destroy that unjust system, because I see them take a strong brother, and it didn't break him down. And I'm not saying in no way saying that they broke my brother down, but I see the atmosphere that it is, and I see the things that it caused to my brother. And so I refuse to allow it to mentally break me. And by the grace of Allah, and as well as the brothers who was there, who supported me, and to be honest, Supermax became one of my best experiences within the prison system for me. It was just the camaraderie I had there at the time I was there, the things I learned, and I learned some things about myself that out here it translate to me surviving that. I feel there's nothing out here that I can't survive.
And listen, and you kind of answered more of my questions, because now you're speaking on what I was going to ask in terms of some of the negative and positive impact of doing that much time. And I can definitely share the sentiment. When we were there, you had to dig deep, and you had to go into the core of yourself and your true self. And then you had brothers that were building on each other. What music to play and listen to, frivolous magazines to read. You read political, you read educational, you read Islamic, you read struggle, and then you had meetings and I mean right there on the tier, even though we couldn't physically meet.
Exactly.
We would have Islamic studies and all that right there on the tier, So I can concur with that. Let me ask you this here. So what was the actual, because we're going back to the appeal now, and when you finally got that reversal, was it the circuit court or was it the court of appeals? When did that reversal happen, and which court actually gave the reversal? And was it total exoneration or what was it?
The first time it was the Wisconsin Court of Appeals. My second time was the circuit court, and it was the full exoneration.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, so let's, walk us through that. How did that take place? I mean, I know you said there was some hesitation at first. He appointed you a lawyer, and he had to, first you filed while you were still being assisted by Damali, you filed a motion for reconsideration for him to take another look at his initial denial of your post-conviction motion. And he did take another look and appointed counsel. So, I mean, was it a hearing? How did that take place? Was it just a written order? Was it an actual
I had a hearing.
Argument? Go ahead.
Now, at the time, we had a new assistant district attorney, and his position, and I'm honestly say this, I believe, and I have to be honest, he seen my case, and he didn't put up no resistance. From day one, he wrote a 2-page reply to my motion and said I deserved the hearing. Once I got the hearing, he asked me 4 questions at the hearing. and he didn't put up no fight. He decided to let the judge make the decision. He didn't put up a fight. And so on June 2nd, 2018, no, June 29th, 2018, I had my hearing, my post-conviction hearing. My past attorney spoke, and then I spoke. My past attorney tried to use the excuse that she can't recall if she explained to me party to a crime and whatnot. What I had her notes out of my file. I had her notes of her interview with me. And in her notes, right, my wife said a paper trail. In her notes, I told her I wasn't at the scene of the crime. I had nothing to do with the crime. I didn't know nothing about the crime, and I was telling her everything. And so once she read that in open court, the only question my lawyer asked was, if he told you all that, can you recall how you convinced him to plead no contest? And she couldn't. Because my attorney couldn't prove that she explained to me party to a crime, and because no one explained to me on the record, the Wisconsin Supreme Court said that then I have to automatically withdraw. My case had to automatically withdraw. My plea was to be considered not a right plea. And so I had, like I said, I had that proof already. Once I got on the stand, I said in open court, no one explained party to a crime. I didn't know about party to a crime, and the DA only asked 3 questions. We did that. She took the stand on Friday, June 29th. I took the stand on Monday, July 2nd. The judge said he was going to make a decision in November. Next thing I know, September 12th, I was in Red Grand Correctional Institution. The Milwaukee County Sheriff came to pick me up. Now, before that, they had brought me to the courthouse. They came to pick me up and took me to court a couple of months before, and I didn't have court. And I had to ride down there for nothing. And if you know about that trip, I was kind of upset. And so I was explaining to the sheriff and people who came to get me that I didn't have a court date. And they was like, well, we have to take you. And I was like, man, I had to go down here. I didn't want to go. Let me just say I didn't want to go. And so because I knew I didn't have a court date. And so this was September 12th. And so I ended up going to Milwaukee County and decided that the next day I talked to my attorney. The next day they called me to court early in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. My attorney was there. My mother was there and my brother was there. And I advised them both not to come see me. I was like, listen, y'all finna drive from Gary down to Milwaukee. You're not going to see me because I'm going to be behind glass. My mother told me that God said I was coming home, and she came. And I was a little upset with that because I didn't have no court date. I walked into the courtroom. The state had, unbeknownst to me, the state had filed a motion. When I walked into the court, I had my whole legal work. I had all legal work with me. The bailiff took the legal work and put it in another room. And when it was time for me to go to court, I said, man, I need my legal work. He said, oh, don't worry about it. And I was finna get upset, but I decided I was going to do it in open court to tell the judge that they didn't give me my legal work. When I sat down, the DA started talking. He put in a motion to dismiss the case outright. And about 5 minutes after he was talking, the judge had dismissed my case. And that's when I looked at my mom and was like, it dawned on me that I was going home. When I got up, the bailiff grabbed my arm and said, I told you didn't need that legal work, because he was already in the courtroom when they was talking about the motion. So it was
So this was September 13th.
September 13th, 2018.
And when did you actually walk out of the county? Go ahead.
September 13th, 2000. This is 8 o'clock in the morning. I ended up walking out about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night.
Wow.
The only reason it took that long because the Department of Correction had to clear.
Yeah. Took nearly 26 years.
Yeah.
To fix something that they knew was wrong out the gate.
Out the gate.
Okay, so let me ask you this here. Exonerated. How does it feel with correction? Before we get to that. You do have pending litigation now, right? Against the against the city of Milwaukee or particular detectives? Okay.
That's against my attorney. I currently have right now filed my complaint against my attorney. I'm also litigating against the Wisconsin Instant Exoneration Claim, the Wisconsin Claims Board, because they awarded me $25,000, and I refused and said they have to hear my additional damage claims, and they have to give me a reason on why they gave someone else over $100,000 and only awarded me $25,000, and I spent 26 years in prison and the other person spent 21. And
Yeah.
so I'm currently in litigation for that. They expected me to just take the $25,000 and sit down.
Okay, well, let me say this here. First and foremost, the amount of loss that occurred, I'm sure, being away from your mother, your father, 26 years. I mean, you can't put a price on that.
Right.
There's no amount of money that can compensate for that. But also, I'm pretty sure it's priceless. The fact that you got to be with them. I understand now both of them have passed away or just one.
Yeah, both.
Man, so I know that was priceless as well to actually get that opportunity.
Man,
some people are never going to come home to their parents again. So explain how both of those were. I mean, the loss, not being there, and then actually getting the opportunity to be there. How was that?
I didn't realize how heavy my incarceration played on my parents.
Yes.
When I got released in the county jail, my mother hugged me. And this is no lie. I literally felt something. She wouldn't let me go, and I felt like a weight come off her shoulders. And also, excuse me, I get choked up.
That's all right, bro.
I took the opportunity. Everybody said I was doing everything fast. You know, I came home September. I got married to my wife in October.
And hold up, let's pause on that before you go too much further. And your wife is?
My wife is Akika Ray Sanders. And a beautiful sister. I'm the beautiful sister.
Yeah, inshallah, I get a chance to meet her. I've seen the pictures.
Yeah, you definitely gonna get a chance to meet her. And so I married her, and family not knowing her sooner, but thinking I did it too fast. But my mom was able to see me with my wife, and she seen me as a husband. She also seen we went on a family trip. She also seen me as we was driving, the person who was driving to pull over at a gas station, and she witnessed me stand on the side and do my prayer. She'd seen me doing prayers. She seen me as a family man. She heard me on the radio doing interviews, and she seen me in a video talking to children at the school. And so she seen me working. It was a lot of things my mom seen within that year and 40 days. Within that year and less than a month, I say. She passed away a year and a month later. But she witnessed a lot of things that she wanted to see. And, I was blessed because I was able to spend time with her. Me and my wife moved right 5 to 7 minutes away from my mom and dad. And so I was able to go and visit her anytime. And, you know what I'm saying? It was just a family. And so
yes.
I was able to take her to the hospital. You know what I'm saying? I was the last one. Well, my dad actually was the last to see her and whatnot. And me, my wife, and my son, we ended up leaving the hospital. And then later on that night, they told me she passed away. And so I was like, alhamdulillah.
How much longer after that did your father pass away?
3 months later.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Saying this, and I don't know the circumstances, but it sounds like the classic. What did he pass away from? If you don't mind me getting into that.
Like heart failure. Yeah.
you know the classic stories, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like it. You've been with a person. How long were they married? How long were they together?
About 50 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like dying of a broken heart, man.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's get us something a little more upbeat here. You mentioned that she got to see a lot of things you were doing. Tell me about some of those things. I remember something along the lines of the mayor there of Gary, or either appointed you to some type of board or committee. Tell us a little bit about that.
I was on actually when I was on project a reentry program with the brother Benny Lee, and
out of Chicago.
Out of Chicago, and we had started the chapter in Gary, and from there I was just meeting brothers blessed, and I was speaking at schools, speaking at colleges, on radio shows.
Pause for a minute. For those that don't know, Benny Lee is one of the founders of the Vice Lord Nation, and let me say this here because people got their own impression and interpretation. The brothers out there doing positive, beautiful non-profit community building, organizing work. I mean, what you're speaking out is a testament to that. So go ahead and finish speaking on that.
Right, and so that's what he had us doing. We was giving back to the community, speaking to the community, doing reentry work and everything. And so the mayor came doing our meetings, and was back in the program where with the Central Park 6 or Central Park 7, where they wanted to come and speak at the convention center, speak at the college about just the injustice of wrongful incarceration. And they just felt like my story fit into that. And so we did a viewing, you know what I'm saying? The brothers came out, and I was one of the ones on the panel.
Pause 1 minute, because, I mean, I heard you a little bit. Did you say the Central Park 5?
Yeah.
Okay, exactly. The guys that were arrested in New York and did, I don't know,
right,
what, 20 years or more themselves
yeah,
for a rape that they did not commit. Yeah, I'm familiar. I mean, the world is familiar with that. So you on a symposium or speaking engagement with them?
Right. I was on the stage. Yeah, I was on the stage. And alhamdulillah, I was the last person to speak. And so it was a lawyer, attorney, them, the guys, and then it was two police. It was the chief. One was the chief of police or the assistant chief of police, and then it was like a state police. And I think the state police, you know, in all honesty, I don't know what his intentions were, but he was speaking on how the police was doing certain things and making the community better and whatnot. And he was just trying to sugarcoat and gloss it. And what it was is he spoke about a person, you know what I'm saying, the police and the police force and the tactics that they use. And as you know, of course, like yourself, I read a lot. I read a lot being incarcerated. And so I knew the person who was speaking about, and so I was able to expose the history. And so he was sitting next to me, and he had turned red because I was speaking the truth. I was speaking nothing but numbers. I was speaking about of the exonerations, wrongful convictions, how African American males make up over 80% of wrongful convictions. And I was like, this can't be an accident. This can't be circumstance. You know what I'm saying? And I was speaking about the arrest rate. I was speaking about the incarceration rate of African Americans. I was speaking about the incarceration rate and the wrongful conviction rate. And I was like, how is it that not only do we get arrested the most, but we get wrongfully convicted the most? And so the people was, you know, like feeling it and clapping and whatnot. And he was just sitting next to me. You know what I'm saying? He was turning red. And I shook his hand because I wasn't being disrespectful with how I started out after everyone was talking. My first statement, I said, well, first I would like to quote I would like to say Sean Carter, also known as Jay-Z. And what he said is men lie, women lie, and numbers don't lie. And then from there, I just went on to list numbers, list exoneration numbers, because I've been studying this for so long that I knew these numbers off my head. And I was listing these numbers. And I was explaining how a young African American male born after 2000 have a 1 in 3 chance to being incarcerated in his life. And I was asking people to let that sit in. I was like, so that means in here, anybody under 21, that's a young African American male, if it's 3 of y'all, 1 of y'all is destined to go to prison. And I wasn't speaking my opinion. I continued to get numbers. And I feel like he didn't like that. You know. He turned red, but I shook his hand and I told him, and at the end I told him, like, I was wrongfully incarcerated. This is my story, and I ended it on that note.
Okay, well let's kind of end this on a different note, because we do have some time constraints here, but brother, believe me, inshallah, God willing, we're gonna have another discussion here. I mean, because there's a bunch of things I think we can cover down the line, including some of the things you're involved with now, and that probably can fit into Kulamani's call to action segment, because we do have a call to action segment too.
Right.
So start getting your information together. I'm pretty sure you don't have it on hand right now, but I will let you have some final comments in that regard. But I do want to do another episode in the future, maybe again call to action, and whatever project you're involved in, we want to hear it. We want the listeners, the audience to hear it. We want the information forward so Kulamani can support it. But let me ask you just here 2 questions in closing. One is, I guess, 2 kind of related. Has there been any type of difficulty readjusting, and what has been the most difficult part? That's question number 1.
My readjustment is I had to change my mindset. And I say that to say, out here is different from in there. And there I had to cut off the world to adjust to live according to the rules and constraints and regulation of being incarcerated. Out here, something that I did for over 25 years no longer applies out here. And so I'm still learning daily on what applies and what not applies. It's certain things that were like at work, you know what I'm saying, some of the guys laughing with the supervisor, whereas I'm sitting back looking and like, man, y'all jeffing with the police. And that's not the and that's not the case. And the supervisors, if I had to kind of get loose in certain things that, and just social media, you know what I'm saying? I'm still not really adapting too much to everything on Facebook, everybody business out there and whatnot. So I'm definitely still adapting to that. And I like to say, just be honest. Without my wife, I'm be honest. Allah sent me her for a reason because I didn't know how to use a debit card, pump gas. I didn't know none of that. And as a man, it's embarrassing to where you can't even get an ID, you can't get a debit card because you don't know how to use it. And so she was patient with me.
Alhamdulillah. Let me say this here. I don't know how much justice you want to do to social media anyway. You better watch that, brother.
Right.
But listen, okay, so having said that, what has been central to you remaining on course? Because you've been out there now, what is it, almost 3 years. Almost 3 years.
Yeah.
Wow. And so what has been central to you remaining on course?
Central for me remaining on course is two things: my faith and my family.
As
long as when I got married to my wife, I told her, as long as you see me stand on my deen, stand on that prayer mat and going out Jumu'ah, then alhamdulillah. I said, when you see me slipping, you need to stay on me.
Listen, we got 1 minute left.
Okay, bro, I appreciate
you answered the question beautifully, but you answered the question beautifully, and I concur because this is something I noticed for those brothers that go out there, stay out there, and remain successful. And it's really 3 ingredients. 1, staying close to Allah, not abandoning the masjid. 2, maintaining gainful employment. You're definitely doing that. And 3, having a wife. You know, those 3 ingredients seem to keep brothers free. Listen, we appreciate it, Doc. Inshallah, we're going to have a chance to revisit, you know what I'm saying, come back to Kulamani again in a different segment. I love you, brother. Assalamu alaikum. This is Kulamani. Speak out, speak truth, and the truth has been spoken. And we'll be back at y'all again.